Alright, so that's my first cleared run. I've had so many where that boss has just, he goes into rage mode towards the end of his health bar, and he basically starts doing instant startup attacks, especially if you have a melee weapon. Like this time I had the Emperor Palpatine Force Lightning, which made it a little easier, but I actually wrote them some feedback. There's a lot of small elements in this game that make it feel kind of artificial. I'm sure you saw there, the aggro range for some of the enemies is crazy. The flying enemies, like, they followed me halfway through that level. They don't leave. Even if you have a door closed, they will just fly right through it. A lot of the enemies, the ranged enemies, can shoot you through walls, which doesn't seem too bad at the start. On the first level, it's very easy to manage. You just go take them out first and then deal with all the other enemies. But as you can see on the second level, there were a lot of rooms where I just straight up didn't go in because they will keep spamming. Sometimes even when they're a little bit off screen, they will target you. And if you have a bunch of like bad combination, you have like the flying enemy and a shielded enemy and one of the wizard dudes shooting at you from below, it is way too difficult to manage that situation. The problem with the bosses is that the instant startup attacks, they're just kind of annoying now because it only takes like 10-15 minutes to finish this demo. The current build that they have stopped here. So it's totally acceptable that it does have that annoying stuff right now, but obviously the game's going to get a lot longer, and I wrote them a pretty long paragraph. I told them that the instant startup attacks, now they're just kind of a nuisance that prevents you from making as much progress with the grinding as you desire. But when the game is going to be like an hour long or however long a total run a full run of this is going to be, they're going to need to reduce that kind of stuff because it's going to make fatigue set in really fast. If it takes you upwards of an hour for an average player or more to get to the end, then having an instant startup attack hit you halfway or 3/4 of the way through and end your run is going to make people stop playing. So I think that they need to slow down the animations a little bit. I hope that they will address some of those situations. I feel like the enemies shooting off screen, maybe perhaps they should have some kind of limit to it or something like that. It's just way too often you will get a combination of enemies where it's almost impossible to manage like getting through there. Even if you need to get something at the bottom, like if the shop is down there or the map tells you there's a good item, sometimes it's not even worth going down there because it will give you a combination of enemies where you just can't really get through there unscathed unless you have a certain build, which obviously, since it's a roguelike, is not going to happen every time. That's why a lot of times on the second level, I will often just go straight down. If I see a lot of those wizard dudes and the flying dudes together, then I just don't go down there because it's very rarely worth the risk of losing a health or, in a more extreme case, losing the entire run. Overall, the game's really fun. I think people are stupid for comparing this to Dark Souls. I get so tired of people comparing anything with an ounce of actual well-balanced difficulty to Dark Souls. Obviously, this game does have some inspiration from Dark Souls. The way that the health potion system works, the progression system is pretty much more of its own beast. Yeah, you do get the souls, and you get to use them to, you get the cells, and you get to use them to unlock things in the item pool. But there's no leveling up in this game at all. I think like people don't have the game journalists don't have a good experience with actual difficult games, so they just compare everything to Dark Souls. If it was like Dark Souls, the game would be like a quarter of the speed it is now. It'd be very slow. One of the things it does have in common with Dark Souls, I've never really had any interest in playing with Dark Souls, is that right now the combat does get a little dry on the bosses and the elite enemies. All you can really do is hit them once or twice and then roll through them and repeat. I told them that the combat needs more variety, at the very least, on those enemies. Maybe perhaps they could add like some new mechanic or have like some way to consistently stun them. Maybe if you parry them, then you stun them and you can use more of your moveset or something like that. Right now the combat is fun when you're fighting base enemies, but when you have to fight anything that requires more effort, you can see how shallow it is. You just kind of roll through things and repeat. There's not really a whole lot else you can do. The skills or the items that you can use help with that, but obviously on this run I didn't even get a single one. I'm not sure if that's just I just didn't get to the respective rooms that had them or not, but I feel like there needs to be a little more to the base moveset, especially for the flying enemies. The flying enemies in particular, The only way you can really fight them is to aggro them and parry them with a shield or roll through their swipe attack. You basically can't hit them while they're in the air. Your character is not really equipped to do that. Like, you have way too much weight on you when you jump. You can't really aerial attack in this game. And I understand that they don't want this to be a combo-heavy game, but still, the moveset could use some more work. Even, you know, Egavanias and stuff, towards the end of those games, like, they started adding magical attacks and stuff like that to kind of diversify the moveset and give the player more options. I feel like it definitely needs that. There needs to be some kind of high time mechanic, not even to like combo the enemies, just some way to like actually hit things, you know, at a higher range and stuff like that. Anyway, that's my feedback. I believe that this is going to be in early access on May 10th, so you can go ahead and wishlist it. If you do have a you know, a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel, I believe that they are still doing beta invites, and you can also get this off Keymailer. I actually got this off Keymailer. I was kind of on the fence about playing it at all because I don't really care for anything that draws heavy inspiration from Dark Souls, but when they just randomly gave me a key, I decided to try it because, you know, I didn't really have any major plans for May. I'm just going to be playing random stuff like this. I decided to try it. The game is definitely flawed. It feels like some of the difficulty is artificial. You're thrown into way too many situations where you just can't really manage it unless you have a good build, and I feel like for a roguelike that it's probably going to be at least half an hour, maybe an hour longer. I hope that they put some thought into the overall maximum length of the playthrough as well, but regardless of how much longer it's going to be, they're going to need to balance those features because otherwise people are going to get frustrated and they're going to get negative reviews. And right now, people are putting more weight into negative reviews these days than they would, you know, a while ago. People are starting to wisen up to the fact that game journalists and stuff, most of them either don't have the time, skill, dedication, or passion to really review games like this. Most of them will just call it Dark Souls and say it's too hard and move on to the next game. And we need the, you know, people who do channels like this and, you know, my friends and stuff like that to review these games. And I feel like if they get bombarded with a lot of negative reviews for a lot of the legitimate problems that the game has, then it's not going to get the recognition it deserves. You can see how great the pixel art is. The presentation of the game is great. The pace of the game is pretty good as well in most cases. Sometimes there's just too many situations where you have to take things slow, and the problem with that is, depending on your build, it can be almost impossible to actually kind of get an advantage in battle. They're definitely going to need to work on that, but I will definitely be playing this more. As far as I know, I have a full key. It is not just a beta key, so as they update, I will probably update people like I did with 20XX. I did stop with 20XX because I kind of, combination of getting bored of it and just not liking some of the changes. The game feels kind of hard for some of the wrong reasons now. I've had a difficulty getting back into it. I've been playing it a little bit off stream, and I've been kind of looking for a new roguelike. So between this and Red Obsidian Remnant, I think I found my new roguelike game. So I'll definitely be updating you guys on both of those games as they develop. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.